Football never sleeps, and neither do the signals. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Football Signal HQ, the place where the noise ends and the football talk begins. We are still counting down to football's biggest event, which is the FIFA World Cup. What's the FIFA World Cup without the footballers? We've had footballers like Thierry Henry, Ronaldo de Lima, Ronaldinho, Lionel Messi, Filippo Inzaghi, Fabio Cannavaro. These are footballers who were already popular, who have made name for themselves, and they got the opportunity to showcase their talent on football's biggest stage. We also have players like Elhadji Diouf, Frank Ribery, Oscar Vadio, James Rodriguez, Mesut Ozil. These are footballers who were relatively unknown, but used the platform of the FIFA World Cup to launch their careers, and they went on to make names for themselves afterwards. On the flip side, we also have footballers who were super talented, but never got the opportunity to showcase that talent on football's biggest stage, which is the FIFA World Cup. Today, we are going to be looking at the top 10 of such footballers who have amazing talents but never got the opportunity to play at the FIFA World Cup. At number 10, I have Gunnar Nordal. Gunnar Nordal is actually the AC Milan's highest ever goal scorer. I know that that might sound interesting for AC Milan, a team that have had players like Filippo Inzaghi, Andriy Shevchenko, Gianni Rivera, Marco van Basten. They've had of these arrays of stars play for them. But Gunnar Nordal is actually AC Milan's highest ever goal scorer. Gunnar Nordal also won 5 Serie A high goal scorer award. But you would ask yourself, why did he now end up not playing at the FIFA World Cup? Leading to the World Cup in 1950, Sweden, because Gunnar Nordal is from Sweden had this rule that prevented players who played outside of the Swedish league from playing in the national team. And at this time, he was already playing for AC Milan. So they had this rule up until they went to the 1950 World Cup without him, although Sweden managed to finish third in that World Cup. In 1954, the rule was still in place, so he missed that World Cup as well. When Sweden eventually lifted this ban in 1958, Nordal was more or less already past his prime. He was already 36 at the time, so he couldn't even be part of the team. He had even left AC Milan for AS Roma at that time, so it was impossible for him to be already part of the team. And this was how Sweden lost out on having their greatest ever goal scorer playing for them, and he ended up not featuring in any edition of the FIFA World Cup. At number 9, I have Ben Schuster, a midfield maestro, a footballer who actually played for Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Atletico Madrid. In today's football, it's unimaginable to imagine like a footballer that would play for both Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, and Barcelona. I mean, in recent times, we've had players that played for Real Madrid and Barcelona, players like Javier Saviola, Luis Figo, Luis Enrique. I mean, it's still like in recent times. We've had players done that. We had Griezmann that played for Barcelona and Atletico Madrid as well. But it's quite unimaginable, for a player to play for these three clubs. But Ben Schuster managed to do that. He placed second in the Ballon d'Or in 1980. He won the European Championship with West Germany in 1980 as well. But due to injury, he missed out of the World Cup in 1982. He had a fallout with the coaches, and this amazing midfielder retired at the young age of 24. Ben Schuster retired from football at the age of 24. That's quite unimaginable. I mean, he later went on to be a successful coach. He coached Real Madrid, won the La Liga with Real Madrid as well. After a series of mishap with coaching with Real Madrid, there was Vandali Luxembourgo, Ramon Lopez Caro, there was Carlos Queiroz. Ben Schuster came, won the La Liga with Real Madrid, and he went on to have an amazing career as a coach. At number 8, I have Jari Litmanen of Finland. Jari Litmanen was a successful footballer at club level. He played for Ajax, played for Barcelona, played for Liverpool, but he was just unlucky with Finland. His Finland side was not talented enough to qualify for the FIFA World Cup. But Jai Liedmanen at club level played with some of the most amazing footballers you can imagine. He played with the likes of Marco Vermars, Patrick Kluivert, Kanu Wakwat Ayers, Finidi, Edwin van der Sar, Clarence Seedorf, Wistin Bogart. He played with an array of stars across Ajax, Liverpool, and Barcelona. But because he was from Finland, who never produced players at his quality at that particular point in time, he never got to feature in the FIFA World Cup. At number 7, I have Ian Rush from Wales, an all-time leading goal scorer for Liverpool. He scored over 300 goals in over 600 appearances for Liverpool. He was a serial winner at Liverpool. He won the European Cup at Liverpool, won FA Cup, won individual awards as well, including the PFA Player of the Year. But he was from a Welsh side that wasn't as talented at that point in time. Realistically, he could have played in any of the World Cup from Spain 82 to the World Cup in France in 1998. But maybe perhaps he could have played in maybe 3 of those realistically, but within those time frame, and Rush could have made any of those World Cups. And I think the most painful of them was the World Cup in 1994 in USA, where Wales was actually one win away from qualifying. So Ian Rush, despite how prolific he was for Liverpool, and despite being one of the deadliest striker that English football has ever seen, never got to play at the World Cup. At number 6, I have Abedi Pele of Ghana, one of Africa's greatest ever footballer. Ghana never got to qualify for the World Cup until 2006, after which, Abedi Pele was already past his prime and even retired from football. But Abedi Pele was amazing at Olympic Marseille. He's one of the greatest footballers ever to come out of the continent of Africa. Abedi Pele won the African Footballer of the Year 3 times in a row between 1991 and 1993. Abedi Pele won the French League. He was a Champions League winner with Olympic Marseille in 1993. Abedi Pele also got to play with some of the most amazing footballers of that generation, people like Rudi Vola, Fabien Barthez, Eric Cantona, Jean-Pierre Papin, who also won the Ballon d'Or. So Abedi Pele, an amazing footballer, one of the best ever to come out of the continent of Africa, but never got to play and showcase his talent at the FIFA World Cup. At number 5, I have George Best and Northern Ireland. George Best is a top 5 ever highest goal scorer for Manchester United. He was a prolific striker. He won the Ballon d'Or in the 1960s. Great player for Manchester United, but his peak and his timing never aligned, with Northern Ireland featuring at the World Cup. So at the end, George Best never got to play at the World Cup till he retired. At number 4, I have Ryan Giggs of Wales. Ryan Giggs, also just like George Best, he was not so lucky to come from a country with super talented footballers. Ryan Giggs is a world-class footballer at Manchester United. He was one of Fergie's boys, won the Champions League at Manchester United, won the Premier League multiple times with Alex Ferguson and other amazing players like Paul Scholes, Andy Cole, Teddy Sheringham, the Wayne Rooney's of this world. He won a lot of trophies, won the FA Cup with Manchester United, but never got to play at the World Cup due to his nationality, which was Wales. He retired in 2007, and Wales never got to play at the World Cup until the edition in 2022. At number 3, I have another Manchester United legend, Eric Cantona, and France. Eric Cantona joined Manchester United from Leeds United in 1992, played for Manchester United between 1992 and 1997. He won several titles at Man U. He won 4 Premier League titles, won 2 FA Cup titles, won individual award as well. I think he won the PFA Player of the Year award at Manchester United. He was also one of the leaders of the Manchester United class of 92, among young players like David Beckham, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, Nicky Butt and the like. But his national team career didn't really get that much going. He retired from football in 1997. In 1994, France failed to qualify for the World Cup in USA. At some point, it was even suspended. It was a very controversial footballer. So there was a time he had a clash with their coach. He was suspended, and the rise of Zinedine Zidane also did not help his cause. He retired in 1997. France qualified for the World Cup in 1998, eventually winning it, and Eric Cantona never got to play at the World Cup. At number two, I have Alfredo Di Stefano from Argentina, Colombia, Spain. I mean, you can already see the complication. Alfredo Di Stefano is a Real Madrid legend, a football legend, not even just Real Madrid. Alfredo Di Stefano won the UEFA Champions League 5 times consecutively between 1956 and 1960. And in the 1960 final, one of the UEFA Champions League greatest ever final between Real Madrid and Eintracht Frankfurt. Real Madrid won that final 7-3. Alfredo Di Stefano scored a hat-trick in that final. Ferenc Puskas scored another 4 goals in that final. Alfredo Di Stefano won 8 Spanish titles. Alfredo Di Stefano also won the Ballon d'Or twice. He was a complete footballer. He could play anywhere across the pitch. Alfredo Di Stefano was super amazing. One of Real Madrid's highest ever goal scorer. But Alfredo Di Stefano never got to play at the World Cup. When he was representing Argentina in the 1950, Argentina did not qualify for the World Cup. In 1954, due to national team complications, he couldn't play. In 1960, Spain did not qualify, and when he could eventually play, there was one World Cup edition, I think 1962 or 64. He was also injured and couldn't play at the World Cup. So Alfredo Di Stefano, despite what he achieved with Real Madrid at club level, despite all his individual achievements, despite being one of football's greatest ever footballer, never got to play at the World Cup. Finally, at number one, I have John Pongwe of Liberia. George Weah was brought to Europe by Arsene Wenger in 1988. He was brought to Monaco. From Monaco, he moved to PSG. He won a couple of awards with PSG, the French league title a couple of times. From PSG, he moved to AC Milan. At AC Milan, he won the Serie A, I think, twice as well. He developed into one of the most feared striker in Europe, which culminated in him winning the Ballon d'Or and FIFA World Footballer of the Year in 1996. To date, George Weah remains the first and the only African footballer to have won the Ballon d'Or. But his fate in Liberia, his country, was not as bright as his club career. They came really close to qualifying for the World Cup in Korea and Japan in 2002, but they were unlucky to be in the same group with Nigeria and Ghana. And at some point, they actually had the upper hand in that group. Nigeria had to go and win a game away in Sudan in the famous Battle of Omdurman. Nigeria had to go to Sudan, beat Sudan 4-0, and I remember that vividly. It was 2 goals from Yakubu Ayegbeni, 1 goal from JJ Okocha, and Julius Agawa. They were the goal scorers in that game, and Nigeria had to pull that infamous win in Sudan. Then eventually, Liberia still hoped that Nigeria was going to lose to Ghana at home in Port Harcourt, but we eventually smashed Ghana 3-0 in that final game in Port Harcourt, which made Nigeria to be the one to qualify out of that group. Liberia missed out by just 1 point, and they lost out to Nigeria, and that's when they eventually get to not play at the World Cup. I remember that George Weah still came with Liberia to the Nations Cup in Mali in 2002 when he eventually retired. But till date, George Weah is still the first and the only Ballon d'Or winner from Africa. Never got to play at the World Cup, but one of the most feared striker in the game during his time. Some could say he opened the door for strikers like Samuel Eto'o, Didier Drogba, people like Frederick Kanute, Elijah Diop. He sort of like created the path for these strikers to eventually succeed in European football. So there you have it.